everybody. Welcome back. I'm Glenn.
I'm Michael.
We are remote again.
Remote. I'm in 2-week post-baby quarantine.
The baby bubble.
The baby bubble. Yep.
How's everything going?
It's going smooth. The first days we were home was a transition, but I think everything's getting back to normal and should be able to start doing stuff at the office again next week.
Good. That's good. We'll be here. So I guess today let's talk a little bit about what happens after divorce, as far as estate planning and things like that. I mean, you deal with a lot of divorces and things like that. What do you talk to your clients about after you get a divorce finalized?
I like to talk to them initially, even when the divorce is pending. There's nothing that prevents a person from changing their will or changing their power of attorney or establishing those documents while a divorce is pending. So I do have some clients that come in, and whenever we get the divorce action started, we draft up new powers of attorney and a will for them to make sure that their spouse is specifically disinherited in case somebody passes away during the pendency of that divorce case. We talked about it earlier. I think, once somebody dies and a divorce is pending, the case is dismissed and then it becomes a probate issue. So after the divorce gets finalized, for sure, the individual wants to come in and make sure that their old documents that left any assets to their spouse, who's no longer their spouse, make sure those documents get updated. So that's one of the first things you want to do when you're contemplating divorce or after something gets finalized.
Yeah, I think we had this issue come up recently because I looked this up more recently than I had before, and a lot of married couples have wills. I call them reciprocal wills, I guess. I leave everything to my spouse if my spouse survives me. And what the Probate Act says is if you're divorced and you have not changed your will and you've mentioned your spouse in that will, then the spouse is deemed to have predeceased you. So, I mean, I think that's the default. I don't know that that's the best possible scenario. I mean, there's a lot of blended families, second, third marriages where leave everything to all the children of both parties to the marriage and things like that, and that's not going to change any of that, if the documents are not updated after the divorce. So I think that's a important step, is to actually update the documents once the divorce is finalized.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that comes up, and a lot of times people don't think about this, is, with these blended families or these second or third marriages, sometimes you have family units that, the hierarchies, grandma and grandpa or great grandma and grandpa, they leave their assets to their children. And maybe they make provisions in that will that if their child predeceases them, that their child's surviving spouse would receive their fair share or a portion of their share. So if you are planning to leave assets to your child or to your child's spouse, make sure that if that child does go through a divorce, that you update your estate planning documents accordingly, because that is kind of the second layer there. You don't think about it when grandma and grandpa are providing for their children or their children's spouse. We want to make sure those get updated too. So, I think it's always better to have your documents say exactly what you want them to say rather than letting the laws of the state of Illinois control.
Yeah, I try to cover some of that when I do wills. It says, if my child doesn't survive, then to the spouse, if married to my child at the time, and I think that covers some of it, but definitely one of those life circumstances where you want to update things. One of the things that I think you and I both see quite a bit is failure to update beneficiaries or to update joint ownership and things like that. And that there's no provision for that. That's who's going to take those assets if they're listed as beneficiaries or if they're joint owners and things like that.
Yeah, specifically with life insurance policies, that's the big one that comes up. Illinois has a specific law that says any beneficiary of a life insurance policy shall receive those proceeds. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've been divorced. It doesn't matter if sometimes we have situations come up where somebody passes away and their estate's insolvent, and all they do is have, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Well, the life insurance policy, if it has a named beneficiary, that beneficiary takes those proceeds free and clear. And I think that's what people need to be conscious of, is whoever they have named as beneficiaries are going to be the ones that receive, unless they change that, regardless of whether a divorce happens.
Right. Yeah, that would be the same on, like retirement accounts and stuff like that, where most of the time the default's going to be your spouse, and don't update that. That could be a rude awakening to somebody, I think.
Yeah, and I think most retirement plans do not allow you to change your beneficiary if you're married. So if you have your spouse designated as your beneficiary and you want to change that to your children and you have not yet divorced that individual, you'll need to get their consent before you can change anything. So that does come up sometimes too. Again, if a divorce action has a lot of complex issues that might not get resolved right away, but husband or wife wants to update their beneficiary on their retirement accounts, either they have to have that spouse consent to it, or they have to do what's called a bifurcated divorce, which essentially says the judgment for dissolution, you are divorced as of today's date, but all the financials are going to be taken care of at a later date. That's one big thing on the retirement accounts. You either have to have that spouse consent or have the judgment of dissolution be entered.
So you have to get the dissolution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are important considerations, I think, and I know that you see it a lot, and I see it, after the fact quite a bit too. But just making sure that your documents reflect your circumstances.
Yeah, I think it's good to review your assets and your beneficiaries at least annually. I know I've recently added a life insurance policy on a baby, so I'm going to review that one every year, make sure my beneficiaries are updated. If my wife and I are no longer here, we want to make sure somebody else gets those proceeds. So that's something I think any prudent person would do at least once a year. A lot of people have a lot of people are doing day trading now during the quarantine and shutdown, and there's a lot of small accounts out there that you don't think of setting up a beneficiary whenever you set that account up. I don't even know if E-Trade or I think there's Robinhood, Acorns. There's a few different like penny type investments, but whenever you sign up for one of those, I don't think they ask you to name a beneficiary. So there are a lot of assets out there other than just your checking and savings account and your retirement accounts that maybe you want to look at and make sure you do have beneficiaries named.
Yeah, that's a good point. I opened one of those myself actually on March 5th. It's been quite the roller coaster.
Yeah, I had a little one. I think it was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I took some of it out. And I think over the last couple of days, it's taken a pretty big hit.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. I did it as a learning tool for a child of mine, but it's been has been pretty atypical, I think.
Well, maybe everything will stabilize here in a couple of weeks.
I hope so. Hope we can get some more sports going. We're out of baseball right now, I guess. Dodgers won the World Series and still got some football going, but that's about it, I think.
Yeah, it looks like Big Ten football may be facing a struggle here. Wisconsin's out. Big Ten doesn't have the bye weeks built into their schedules like everybody else did, so they may struggle to get their games completed.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm not overly concerned about that for the Illini. Didn't look very good last week.
They didn't come out swinging.
More worried about the basketball season.
Yeah, and high school basketball for that matter.
Yeah. Well, hopefully everyone stays healthy and warm now that it's cold. So we'll see you next time, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.